In 1937, J.R.R. Tolkien wrote a children's book called The Hobbit. It was a simple story about a small, ordinary character thrown into an extraordinary adventure. Tolkien had no idea that this book would grow into one of the most influential fictional worlds ever created. Because when The Hobbit became popular, Tolkien decided to write something far more ambitious. That story became The Lord of the Rings, a mature epic published in the 1950s that would go on to define modern fantasy. For decades, filmmakers tried to adapt Tolkien's work. Animated films came and went. Some were charming, some were strange, but none captured the full scope of Middle-earth. That changed in the mid-1990s, when a relatively unknown director named Peter Jackson decided to attempt the impossible, adapting The Lord of the Rings into live-action films. After years of pre-production, filming, and post-production, the trilogy began with The Fellowship of the Ring in 2001 and concluded with The Return of the King in 2003. The result was historic. The films weren't just massive box office hits. They were embraced by critics, casual audiences, and even hardcore Tolkien fans. The Return of the King won 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, a rare achievement for a fantasy blockbuster. But the real question is, why did these movies work so well, even decades later? To understand that, we have to go back to Tolkien himself. Tolkien didn't just write a story. He built a world. What made Tolkien different wasn't just his imagination, it was his approach. Before Tolkien, most fantasy stories were about escapism. Characters began in the real world, traveled to a magical land, and eventually returned home. These fantasy worlds weren't meant to function like real places. They didn't have deep histories, languages, or rules. Middle-earth was different. Middle-earth was the world. It had geography, cultures, mythology, entire languages. Tolkien referred to it as a secondary world, a place that felt real enough to study, not just visit. That level of depth changed fantasy forever. Elves, dwarves, orcs, and even hobbits became archetypes because Tolkien didn't just borrow them, he redefined them. Nearly every modern fantasy story owes something to Tolkien, whether directly or indirectly. The influences behind Middle-earth. Two major forces shaped Tolkien's writing: European history and Catholicism. The Shire reflects rural England, simple living, community, harmony with nature. Isengard represents industrialization, destruction, machinery, and loss of balance. Rohan draws inspiration from Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian cultures. Gondor echoes the Byzantine Empire. Even the Elvish languages were influenced by Celtic sounds and structure. But Tolkien's Catholic faith also runs deep in the story. The One Ring represents temptation, not just evil, but the slow corruption of good intentions. Even the noblest characters fall to it. Frodo, Gandalf, and Aragorn each reflect different Christ-like roles: the burden-bearer, the resurrected guide, and the rightful king. The message is consistent. Power, even when used for good, always comes at a cost. Peter Jackson's gamble. When Peter Jackson pitched The Lord of the Rings, studios were hesitant. At one point, Miramax wanted to turn the entire trilogy into one single movie. Jackson refused. Eventually, New Line Cinema took a massive gamble and approved 3 films at once, with a combined budget of $300 million, an unheard of risk at the time. This decision changed everything, because instead of hoping for sequels, Jackson could plan a 12-hour story from the very beginning. That meant seeds planted early paid off later. Characters evolved naturally. Themes were consistent. Nothing felt rushed or disconnected. An unprecedented production. The production of The Lord of the Rings was unlike anything before or since. Pre-production alone lasted 26 months. Thousands of costumes were made. Tens of thousands of weapons were forged. Entire armies were physically built, not just rendered on computers. Weta Workshop created armor, prosthetics, miniatures, and creatures with obsessive detail. Hobbit feet, orc armor, hand-linked chainmail. Even the environments were treated with care. Filming in New Zealand gave Middle-earth a grounded, natural beauty that CGI alone couldn't replicate. And while the films used groundbreaking visual effects, they relied heavily on practical techniques like forced perspective and massive miniatures, techniques that still hold up decades later. Battles like Helm's Deep and Minas Tirith aren't great because they're big. They're great because they're structured. Each battle has contrast. Moments of victory and defeat, and escalation, tension that rises steadily until the breaking point. The geography is always clear. You know where characters are, and most importantly, the battles serve the story, not the other way around. The ending. One of the most common criticisms of The Return of the King is that its ending is too long. But that criticism misses the point. The destruction of the ring is the climax of the plot, not the story. The story is about what the ring does to people. Frodo doesn't destroy the ring by sheer will. He fails, and that failure haunts him. The extended ending shows us the cost of that journey. Why Frodo can't fully return to the Shire. Why his peace only comes when he leaves Middle-earth behind. That final smile on the ship isn't excess, it's resolution. The reason The Lord of the Rings still resonates isn't just because the films are well made. It's because Tolkien and Jackson shared the same philosophy. Depth matters. When creators care deeply, audiences feel it. That's why Middle-earth still invites exploration through books, films, games, and lore. And why, decades later, we're still talking about it. Some trilogies come and go, but The Lord of the Rings feels timeless, and we may never see something like it again.